Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for part 2 of transition planning with Janet Estervig of the Attainment Company. This was such an expansive topic that covered so many different areas. We could not possibly do it in one hour slot. We expanded it to 2. So we're lucky enough that Janet was able to join us for yet another session of Sibs Stick Together to talk about the things that we didn't talk about last week, or the things that you had questions about and wanted to hear more about. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Janet and to Sam. Sam, do you want to say anything?
I also just wanted to reiterate what we said on the first webinar, which is that a lot of these topics can be very difficult. They involve some really difficult family planning questions and what happens in very tragic situations and very difficult conversations to bring up with family members. So I wanted to be sensitive to that and point out that we have resources that are linked on our Sibs website, and to please take these things at your own pace. Wherever you are on this journey is absolutely correct, and all of the information will be here for whenever you're ready to access it.
All right, so I had the privilege of actually being able to present on transition planning last time, and so I'm very excited to be able to do it again. I think that we all know that transition planning, that's a lot, because I just was watching a parent talking about the cliff. They actually call this the cliff. They've been involved in school services, and their son or daughter or your sibling has been in school during this time frame, and then the school is done. And you got to understand, school is mandated services, and then you get into the eligibility services, Medicaid waiver services, vocational rehabilitation service. You get into a whole nother world that now you have to be a strong advocate to be able to get what you need, and determine whether you're even eligible for what you need. So it is, they call it the cliff, and it's because it is really just really high expectations. The IEP is mandated. It's literally a legal document, and then you're off that cliff and you're in a whole nother world in the adult service system. So as I told you last time, if you had a chance to see the last one, I was a high school teacher. I ran a supported employment program. I'm a registered nurse as well. I happened to go back to school and became a nurse when I was, I see my phone is making noises and I got to turn it down. And so I went back to be a nurse when I turned 50. So you're never too, and whatever age, we always are here to learn new things. So I ran a personal care agency. I worked at the state of Wisconsin, really to initiate employment across the whole state. And now I work at Attainment Company, and I write awesome, cool curriculum and get to train teachers and service providers, educators on how to support students and adults with disabilities on their trajectory to a life that's included, that's inclusive, that's part of their community, that includes work and living and recreating in their community, and really a full life. And that's really what we want for us, and we want it for everybody. So the sibling is all kind of a piece of all this puzzles. And so I just decided to list a list of things that you'd want to make sure that's on that plan for the future. When they leave high school, what's going to happen? So I actually made a list, and then in that list, I'm going to explain each one. So we've already talked about this, a person-centered plan, or sometimes, that's part of the IEP. It might be called a individual service plan. It's all different terms. Doesn't matter. What's
Janet,
about is developing your dream, helping the individual say, what is my dream? You did this when you left high school. It was like, what is my dream? What is it that I want to do? And then as you're developing that dream, helping this individual, just because they have a disability doesn't mean they don't have those same dreams. What is my story? And being able to share that story, and who am I? And what are the things I can do really well? What are the gifts I bring out there? And what's going to be my barriers? What are going to be my challenges? And how am I going to need, what am I going to need when I'm done with school? So I always believe people need to look at employment. I don't care what level of disability a person has.
Janet,
yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Are you trying to change your slides?
I am changing slides.
It is not currently happening.
Why isn't it doing it? Let me try it again. I wonder why it's not.
It might have to be in presenter mode. I'm not certain.
Let's see. I'm going to put into share. Now, do you see that?
Yeah, we see
Yes.
that now. Yeah.
Okay, now
yeah.
let's see if when I move the screen to the next thing, can you see number 6?
Yes. Now there's number 6. Now there's number 7.
Must have been some
Bingo.
goofy thing I did. Okay.
Nope. All good.
So I'm a believer that everybody can work. And so, again, whatever level of disability, it makes no difference. And I truly believe that helping individuals, even if they're a person that's going to be, hitting their head, I don't care what it is that they're doing. We can help them to learn those social skills. And if they don't get this in school, we can help them even after school, once they leave school. But the idea is, let's have higher expectations. Those teachers need to have the expectation. Yes, you can have a job and you can keep your benefits, because many people need to. Of course, they need to, for healthcare, for medications, and for the services they receive. They need to keep it. So what careers then match me? What are the things that I can do? And I really want teachers and paraprofessionals and family members to get behind the idea that a job really is an outcome we want for the students when they leave school. It could be 10 hours a week. It could be whatever it is. It could be a job in entry level. It could be a job on computer data entry. I mean, it can be whatever the skill set that individual has. So I'm a believer, careers, let's think about it. What are some jobs that are going to match me? Now, also, how can I still make good use of the time I'm in school? So if I'm going to stay in school from 18 to 21, what can I be doing? If I don't have to be working specifically on academics, then what are some things I can be working on? And of course, it's those essential skills, those soft skills, those social skills. Truly, those are, of course, the most important, because you're going to be able to gain some actual job skills as well. But I think in the end, it's about all of that, being able to know how to work within a team, and knowing, and I think I mentioned some of this the last time, but, knowing how to introduce yourself, what is small talk, how do you show initiative, how, all of these things that we have to show when we're in a job. Really, those skills can be taught while they're still in school. So what can I still do to make the best use of my time while I'm in school? And then now, okay, I know I'm going to graduate. It doesn't matter if you're 14, 16, 18, 21. There had better be some plan as to who you're going to need to be contacting, because some states will have waiting lists. Some states have managed care systems. Some states have self-determination systems. They're different depending on the state. And so you think about who do I going to need to contact when I'm no longer in school, and what are the services that are even out there? What is even out there? So here's the other thing is how do I manage my money? I'm going to talk a little bit more of that, because a person may know money, may not know what the difference between $100 and $5, and it's okay. There still needs to be a thoughtful thinking about how is the money going to be managed, and that's all in that guardianship process. And then how I'm going to manage my healthcare. I'm a nurse. I do think a lot about this because I support people who have complex healthcare needs. And so how am I going to help that individual manage that healthcare system that's looking different from youth to adults? And then basic questions I'm going to ask. So big question is, where am I going to live? Back home with mom and dad, with you as a sibling, within a system? Maybe there's apartments, duplexes, condos, a home, a group home setting. Where am I going to live? And that really does help. You got to start thinking about that early, because there's a lot of planning to go in if you're going to need some support in that. Where am I going to work? What am I going to do for fun? What are some opportunities in my community so I can have fun and be part of my community instead of a couch potato sitting at home? And then how am I going to get around if I don't have a driver's license, or can I get a driver's license? If I can't, how am I going to get around my community? And again, relying 100% on mom and dad or parents or siblings for all of this can be overwhelming. And these conversations have to be had, because in the end, a family, of course, is wonderful, supportive. It's awesome. But if you think about the fact that you want to live with your family forever, no, we wanted to have a life of our own too. And how do you help support that? And sometimes that, we're talking about difficult conversations, that can be a difficult one. Where can I live? And then talking about what are some of the options I might have. So this was a slide I used last time because I really think this is so important to remind people, what is that transition process about employment? So really looking at, you're doing those basic academics, then you start looking at career exploration, and then you're going to want to start getting opportunities to have jobs in the community. If your school is not doing these things, we want to make sure they are, because these are such critical skills and times and important times. And then 18 to 21 should be all about learning about employment skills. And then those daily living skills. Well, how do I have to make sure that I smell good when I go to work? And what do I have to look like? And do I have to have a name tag? Do I have to wear a uniform and a hat? What are the things that you really need to know about daily living skills? I've got a really cool assessment I'm going to share with you guys later. So person-centered planning. So I tried to find forms out there that were actually called transition planning forms, because sometimes, but you know, the school might have their own forms, but these are the things you want to make sure you know about as a sibling. As we know, parents, anything can happen. And so do you have this information, or do you have access to this information? Do you know where this information is in the household for your sibling? So do you know what emergency and contact information? Who are their healthcare providers? Do you have medical information about allergies, what medications they're taking? In other words, can you have some access to My Chart? You know, most clinics and hospitals have My Chart now. And so can you have access, electronic access to that, and ask your parent, the family members who is in charge of healthcare, can you have access to that? That will give you all of this information. That's why it's so, those My Chart access makes such a difference. It'll show you the pharmacy use, the medications, the last appointments they've had, what appointments are still coming up, who are all their providers. It's all there in one place. So ask if you can have access to that. Are there some behavioral support plans in place? What are those behavioral support plans? Because that are the schools and the teachers and the paraprofessionals or teacher assistants using those support plans when things go awry? And then when they go out into the community in a job, does the job coach know about those support plans? If they're looking at going into a living situation, maybe supported living, which means that they'd be in a maybe apartment with one or two other people with disabilities, or maybe they'd share an apartment with someone without a disability. What are the behavioral support plans for that person? And just being aware of what those are and where you can read it and where it is. Are there some nutrition and dietary needs? That's also sort of that allergy. Are there any food allergies? Transportation providers, who are they? What are their contact name and information? What are their telephone numbers? Because transportation providers are critical in getting people to their maybe medical appointments, or if there is transportation in the community to provide for employment, or being able to go get around, or learning about how to access the bus or other Uber and different things like that. And then is the person, is your brother or sister or significant other, whatever, is that person an agency, part of an agency, getting agency support? Who are the contacts? And I'll tell you, when there's a lot of turnover in agencies, that's when it can be a little frustrating. So you're going to want to just make sure, what is the agency's name? What is their main telephone number? And who's their current case manager there? And see if you can kind of hang on to that information, but just knowing that that name can change. And then what's their current schedule for school? Just knowing what that is. Are they getting out? Are they having opportunities to learn job skills? If they're in an 18 to 21 program, this is where advocacy is good. Or even if they're going to graduate or have graduated in their adult service system, what is their current schedule? And how much of that is sitting at home? So planning for the dream. So this is really just like, what are some dream statements? And does it, maybe there's pictures, maybe the individual could cut out pictures of things they really want to do. Or maybe there's just words that they can pick, or maybe they can draw that tell their own story. And I just feel like do we ever ask, what's your dream job, or what's your dream life? What is it that you want? And maybe the person isn't articulate. Maybe they don't even have, maybe they're called nonverbal, but of course everybody communicates. So it's not, that isn't it. But maybe they can point to things. This is what I want. This is the kind of food I want to eat. These are some of my dreams of places I'd like to live. And we all have them. And some of them can be very robust and unrealistic, but that's okay. It gives you an idea of where this person's at, what they're thinking. And if they actually think that a job at McDonald's will get them that dream house, then they're going to have to be some financial literacy. What does it take to be able to even own a home? And so really helping that individual to understand, what are your dream statements? And then how do you work the building blocks towards that? So I want to live where? Where do they want to live? Have they said? Is it just assumed they're going to live back with the parents? Or is there a plan? And having that conversation. I want to work at, where would they like to work? I had a woman who said, I really want to work at that daycare center right down the street. And I was like, oh boy, that's really limiting. So I walked down the street and talked to the daycare center, and thank goodness they were looking for somebody. And we kind of carved out a job for her. We kind of did our own little job description. And she ended up being like doing some of the snacks and doing the dishes and washing the toys and cleaning and vacuuming while the kids were taking naps. Those are the things that needed to be done every day. And so they were really appreciative. And Teresa worked there for 20 years, I think. It was great. For fun, what do I want to do? They been ever asked? I mean, what is it that they would really like to do? Maybe going to baseball games. Maybe it's going to a fitness program. Maybe it's taking classes. Maybe it's painting. Maybe it's, video gaming. What is it that they want to do for fun? And again, that's what we always look at to see, okay, maybe that might be a matchup for jobs. Or also it might be, then how do we really help that individual be part of their community to join or be part of any of the groups that they can do those fun things, hiking, whatever it is. I want to learn more about, and here is now we're going to ask the question, what do you still need to learn? Because maybe there's opportunities to go into post-secondary education. Maybe there's opportunities every technical college has a disability resource center. Is that individual going to be able to manage the academics of that? Maybe not, maybe yes. But maybe it's also, maybe they go to a certified learning assistant, learning about that. Or maybe it's just going to a class to learn more about cooking or taking care of their home. So I want to go places such as, where would they like to go? Where are they places they'd like to go and see? And I want to save my money I earn for. Sometimes they'll say for a car. I want to be able to have my own car. Okay, well, first you got to get a driver's license. Okay, to get a driver's license, you need to be able to pass this written exam and you have to take these classes. So then you start breaking it down into what it is it takes to have a car and have a driver's license, getting it right down to the nitty gritty. And then what are your dream statements for your sibling? And I really like the idea that you think about that too, is like, I would really like my sibling to live. I want my sibling to work at. For fun, I would really like my sibling to be able to, I want my sibling to learn about, and I want my sibling to go to. So the idea is, what are some of your dream statements for that individual? Okay. Now, it's also important to really have some kind of basis and understanding of my strengths and challenges. What are they? And sometimes a person can be overcritical, or sometimes a person can be extending or overstating what they actually can do. It's fine, just fine. But I want to know, what do they think they're good at? Now, all of this is to help us start looking at what are the supports they might need, what's their dream that they want to have. So identifying what are their interests. My best skill is, and maybe somebody might say, my best skill is I have a great smile. And that's great. And maybe they can't say it, but you're going to say it about that person. I think the best skill of my brother is he is so friendly to others. He's always smiling. Maybe there's some drool in that smile, but whatever, people respond to him. And that's his best skill. Okay, well, how do we build on that? And then I am good in a job doing what? And people say I am good at what? If someone actually asked somebody about you, what would they say you're really good at? I'm happiest when what? And I see myself in 5 years doing what? Now, we always ask these questions, but are we asking that student about these questions? All right, the next thing is, I need help with. What are some of the things that they're going to need help with? What about living on their own? Will they need help in being able to have their own apartment or living in a house with several people? I need the most help with what? Maybe it's reading. Maybe it's somebody checking like contracts for them, or so they're not signing on. Maybe it's social media. I need help with my social media. I get drawn in too much to things on the internet. Maybe I need help with laundry, learning how to fold my clothes. Maybe I need help in cooking. Maybe I need help in my finding a job. What is it? Come up with something. So you see, all of this then starts the idea of, what can I do while I'm still in school? Are some of these goals that we can work on while they're still in school, so when they leave school, they're prepared for some of this. Who can help me overcome barriers to working or living or recreating in my community? Do caregivers need to know my story? So especially if I'm not able to tell my story, I might have some great things to share about my life and about my family and about what I've done. Do my caregivers know that? Are they coming and going to turnover too quickly? Well, then to have social stories, have it written out. Maybe it's pictorial. Maybe it's some writing and some pictures about who I am. So every time a caregiver comes in, maybe to help and assist with personal care, they're doing the most intimate personal care for that individual. And do they even know who they are? What is their story? So I always say, making sure we have social stories really clear. And then what do they need to learn? So again, I need to learn skills to be more independent living. I need to know how to take care of a house. I need to know how to get a job and how to get to and from a job or other activities. And what new skill might I need to be able to do a job? So are there apprenticeships? Are there internships? Are there work experiences I can have to start learning the skills I would need for a job? And then again, what's out there in my community? We did this I guess it was a planning meeting. And so during the planning meeting, we said, well, you really enjoy this activity. Everybody tell me, where can I do this activity in this community? We came up with so many ideas that never, ever would one person ever have known that, because it was all these different connections, and people in the room had, oh, I know about this place, and they have this pottery place over here. And so you build sort of a list of what are some fun things out there in your community. So employment supports. And as we talked about, this is a slide I use. Truly important to know what are some employment supports that you can receive through the Vocational Rehabilitation Agency in each state. And this is some of the things that they provide. Making sure that they're getting these transition services while they're still in school and transitioning out of school, and then making sure they're connecting to long-term supports so that they are getting Medicaid funded services, or that they're meeting that eligibility so they can get job coaching or get some assistive technology in order to be able to do jobs. Sometimes it might be if there's visual impairments or hearing impairments. There's some great assistive technology out there now to really help support those students in getting a job. So matching to a job. So we talk about sort of that work environment. So this is especially for individuals with autism, maybe it's not especially, but I always think about this, that when you have somebody that may have some sensitivities, we really have to think about what kind of work environment would be successful for them. So if you're placing them in a job with lots of noise and lots of activity, maybe for that individual, that might be a real struggle, and it might be a very stressful situation. And then you're going to see some behaviors, and then you're going to see some problems and social skills, and it just escalates. Well, it never would have happened if you thought about the fact that they need a quiet work environment. Maybe they work in an office setting. Maybe they're going to work in a setting that just doesn't have a lot of people around. So thinking about that. Maybe temperature is going to be an issue for this person, hot and cold. Can they work outdoors? Do they want to work indoors? And then again, lots of people around, or just a few people around. So there's lots of jobs that you could be in a small office. There's only 3 people in there and they're doing work there, and that works. Or you can get into a McDonald's that has, 20 people yelling and saying, okay, we got to get this, lots of noise, activity. But if they're focused on just their job and maybe that's something that they enjoy doing, great. The other thing is this person going to do well when there's access to customers, or should they be more behind the scenes? So if they're, making noises and sounds, and, again, I know that everybody's got different skill levels, because you've got people with the disability label with the autism spectrum disorder that are college graduates, and then you have individuals that are going to be, making noises or spinning things, whatever. It's all different. Doesn't matter though. Doesn't matter what skill you have. Are you going to do better in some of these work environments? Doesn't matter. So are you going to do better? Can you talk to customers? Are you going to be able to handle that? Or are you going to need to be somebody behind the scenes? Do you need a job where you're moving all the time? If you got someone who's just doing a lot of rocking and maybe being sedentary is going to cause a lot of problems for them, then maybe they've got to work in a job that they're moving. And so just thinking about that, can they use public transportation, or are they going to need specialized rides? Because if they get a job or want to do fun things in the community, they got to know how to get there. And just relying on parents or you for transportation isn't going to work. We want this person to be as independent as they are able. So can they learn to use public transportation? Can they have a phone to be able to use Lyft or Uber? Can they, do they need specialized rides? Maybe you have a paratransit system, especially for people in wheelchairs. Or can they walk to that work site? We often think about that walk to the work site, do they have to cross any streets, any lights? And then, or maybe they can bike if they're able, or roll to that work site. And of course, in Wisconsin, rolling to the work site doesn't always work in the wintertime. So we got problems with snow and ice. Then the other thing is thinking about that work environment, the age of their coworkers. I know this seems a funny question, but when I think about this, it's more about, and it kind of goes with the next one, it's more about that level of supervision. So if you've got a lot of teenagers in that work environment, that level of supervision for the student is, it might be a little iffy, and there might be some ruckus, and there might not be following rules, and if this person's a rule follower and wants things done right, and you're going to struggle, this individual's going to struggle in that environment. Maybe they'll do better in an environment that has coworkers that are more mature. On the other hand, maybe they don't like working in a more mature environment. Maybe they like working with people closer to their age, and they enjoy that interaction, that camaraderie. So it really, it's so individualized. Just be aware, is this going to be a good match? Will they get the supervision they need? Can they work as a team? Like if setting up, you're working at a convention center and you're doing setups, that's all teamwork. Does that work well for this person? Or are they going to do better if their job is totally individualized? They do their own job. They're not on a line. They're not doing things that rely on other people. And all those kind of jobs are great. Now, will they need someone to help them find a job? That's a job developer. Will they need a job coach? That's somebody who can train and provide support at the job. Will they need some job accommodations? It might be equipment, it might be software, or it just could be a changed schedule because they're relying on public transportation. Maybe they need to start later for the job because of that. Or maybe they rely on personal care workers coming in to get them up in the morning because they have a physical disability. And so there may be accommodation of when they can start their job. Or maybe there's a discussion about disability disclosure, because maybe this individual does not want to disclose their disability. They won't get an accommodation unless you do. But maybe there will be situations for when students may have mental illness, or there's other issues that they just really would rather go into the work site and not have that disability disclosure. It's a conversation to have. Do you want to disclose to the employer that you have a disability or not? It's their choice. And then are you going to connect to vocational rehabilitation because they can help pay for that job developer, that job coach, those job accommodations. They can do all of that and help support the individual. And then they'll usually hire an employment agent or pay for an employment agency. They'll cover the fee or the cost for providing the job developer, the job coach, job accommodations. So is there employment agencies in your community that can do this and provide the supports needed? Some of job development is really about networking. And so there might be family that knows people that and helps get some of these. If you think about what work environments are going to work best, what are some connections you might have as a family member to help find jobs? And will they actually need training? Will they need one-on-one training? Or is it going to be more of a, I'll train and fade? They call it place and train and fade, or are there going to be somebody that's going to need ongoing support at the job? So is there support the employer can give, or are they going to need job coach support? And then really thinking about that post-secondary education, I did use this slide before too, but I really liked it, so I put it back in. Really thinking about what might be some opportunities to get additional training, maybe a college degree, maybe they're going to get going to a technical college, thinking about what actually this person's skill sets are and what they might be able to do. And so I assisted somebody who got his bachelor's degree in mathematics. And he had the disability label, back then it was called Asperger's. And then, and so we talked about this, but some of his social skills were a big challenge in the classroom. So I went in and always spoke to the professor, kind of gave him a little bit of information about this individual, again, with his permission. And so, so that it wasn't a surprise when someone came into the class who could do all the academic work, but would have some uniqueness in the classroom, because he would sometimes walk right down to the blackboard and go, "Don't erase it, I gotta copy it," as he's trying to copy down what the professor wrote down. And, and all the students are like, but eventually everybody got to know him because, once you're in these mathematics classes, it's a small group of people that go to him. So it was fine. He got his degree. He did a great job. So who to contact prior to graduation? You want to make sure that family members are checking in with vocational rehabilitation, looking at any kind of post-secondary opportunities. Hopefully the guidance counselor or whatever they're called now, the counselor is talking to people. If they're thinking about technical college, talking to their disability resource staff. Will the person be eligible for Medicaid funded long-term service eligibility? That's those agencies that can provide supported living, can provide supported employment or competitive employment services, or CIE, customized competitive integrated employment. And then making sure you understand the benefits analysis for Social Security. Voc Rehab can cover that cost, or the state will have can contract to cover that cost. Doing a benefits analysis, you can do a simple one, really. If I'm on SSI, how much can I earn? If I'm on SSDI, how much can I earn? If I'm on SSI, how much can I have for assets? $2,000, that's it. So those family members who want to put money away for that individual are going to go to that ABLE account. I talked about that last time, and I kept the slide about that. But you really want to have a good understanding of what you can earn in a month if you want to maintain your benefits. But there are many people who want to work off benefits and can, and that's called Ticket to Work. So that's another whole training on Social Security. But definitely ask for a benefits analysis so that you can think about what can I do for employment? What are my goals? All right, so this was managing that money. So thinking about who's the rep payee for Social Security once they turn 18, there might be some fiscal assistance. I'm a guardian for a gentleman that he just turned 50, and he's somebody that with my approval, we contract with a fiscal agent who manages the money, comes into them. They're the rep payee. And then they manage all his bills. They pay them. So I don't have to, it costs $42 a month for them to do all this. They'd send all the reports to Social Security. They make sure all his bills are paid, utilities, everything. And then he lives in a supported apartment with another man with a developmental disability, intellectual disability. And so it's a fiscal agent. It's called fiscal assistants is actually their name. But every state will have agents or companies that will help with this. And that just takes such a burden off of somebody who is living in their own supported living arrangement. And now I didn't have to do any of those managing. And then just understanding what the guardianship is. Are they a limited guardian or a full guardian? Because sometimes you might just be financial guardian, you might be decision-making guardian or a state guardian. So guardianship actually has to go through the court system. There's a cost to that. And for that person to get a guardian, and that is another training on what to do to have a guardian. So there's different kinds. So making sure that you got the kind of guardianship that you want to have. And then budgeting, and sometimes it doesn't have to be a sibling to be the guardian. To be perfectly honest, I'm not the sibling. We call us volunteer guardians. They're just people who happen to be in the life of the individual, and we are volunteers. So both guys that live together, we're both, myself and the other woman that's the other guy's guardian, are volunteer guardians. We're just people who knew them along the way. We're not service providers of them anymore, and that's okay. It doesn't always have to be the sibling, and it might be better not to. So budgeting skills, really understanding income and expenses, how much can they have in saved, how much can they have in earned income, what's their Social Security income. Like I say, on SSI, you can have 2,000 in assets. And then looking at ABLE accounts. Those are those accounts you can set aside. People like grandma and grandpa or whoever can put money into that, and then that can go towards expenses for that individual, living expenses, travel expenses, whatever they need to use it for, and it's related to their disability. It can also pay for, supports as well. And then there are definitely, you can earn and maintain benefits. I keep saying that because I think there's a myth that you cannot. It's just knowing how much. And then this healthcare. So I talked about in the beginning. So managing healthcare, it's important to make sure that there's a clear information about who's their primary, who takes care of their vision, their dental, maybe mental health, who's the pharmacy, what medications they take, what allergies might they have, who actually sets up the appointments, and then who gets them to and from those appointments. And what's medical history, because no matter who provides support for them, they're going to need some of this medical history. So having this information in just a spreadsheet, a format, maybe there's a form that just can be filled out. And I do have some links to some transition planning forms. But the idea is that is having all of this in one place, helping to manage a person's healthcare, and especially if they have really complex healthcare needs. Now, maybe many people won't, and it'll just be the basics. But if they have more complex needs, then having more information is good. And then preparing for that life after school. So there's an assessment that I want to share with you, and it can be purchased at Attainment Company, but I want to give this to people that are watching this. So it's called the Independent Living Assessment, and I like it because it asks a lot of questions and it helps build goals. So it talks about hygiene and personal appearance, woohoo, really important, food management, money management, and that whole financial literacy. What does it take in order to have a car? What does it take to live in an apartment? Every student needs that. Interpersonal skills, those are those important social skills that can be a challenge for individuals with disabilities because they don't always catch the cues, especially nonverbal cues. They're not catching them. And so they're going to go ahead and do things that just don't match up. And then community skills, housing and housekeeping skills. And are they being asked to do housekeeping skills? All right, this is the tough question, right? All of these can be, you want to talk to the parents about maybe they're not talking about any of these things with your sibling. And it might be good to have a conversation about these. So here's, Sam, did you have a question?
I just wanted to say we have like about 15 minutes left,
Oh,
and I have a couple questions from previous parts of your talk. So I just wanted to give you a
okay.
little bit of a heads up.
All right. And that's okay, because I think I'm good. Okay, so thank you, though. I do appreciate knowing, because I'm such a gabber. So here's an example of this assessment. And again, I want to share this because I think that you might like to have a copy of this. So what it talks about is emerging, developing, proficient, exceptional. So we ask the question, do they understand what renting is? Yes, if they do, then they can move into the next one. Do they know how to find want ads for vacancies? Yes. Okay, then you'd move to the next one. Do they know what a landlord is supposed to do? No. So now you've got goals right here. We wrote them out that you can start looking at to be in that mode proficient and exceptional. Do they know what a budget is? Do they know what to pay rent? So housing, here is a whole list of goals. And, actually, you might be in one or another for some of these questions. It doesn't matter. It gives you the opportunity to see ideas of what might be good for goals for housing and housekeeping. And here's one on money management and financial literacy. Whoops. So this was also to can they match the definition of word for bank? Do they know what bank is? And then what a checking ATM card, all that. So it's all written out. And I feel like this is really a cool assessment that can really help to start having a format to ask questions. The other one is the travel journey assessment. And this one I also want to give you. And this one looks at, where is that student at? Are they independent? 2 means they need some minimal support. 3, they might need some assistive technology. 4 they need support throughout the process. And 5, they need an attendant. So here's the question. So we talk about, can they identify landmarks for pickup and drop off for a bus? Can they identify the correct bus? Can they transfer? So where are they in that 1 through 5? What instruction will be needed? What modifications or accommodations will be needed? And what support might be needed? So you could already, if they're unable to do these things on the left, and we have everything about, crossing streets and being able to identify buses and being able to navigate, then we ask each of these 3 questions. I think also this gets that conversation open to what is that person's skill for being able to get around their community. And this is when it happens to be on social skills. Do they use socially appropriate communication skills? Do they greet people on stuff? So travel planning, so really safety skills. Where are their experiences? So I think you're going to like that. Here are some transition planning resources that I actually looked to try to find more like forms or I would look and they'd have PDFs that you could open and maybe use for some of these questions to help this. But even just this PowerPoint, which you're welcome to have, I'll make sure you have that, so that they can use this to look at these resources. Here's that financial literacy on ABLE accounts. Super cool. And I talked about this at the last one, but I kept this slide in because this is amazing that it's allowing this much money to be set up that does not affect their Social Security, and people can put money in. I think it's like $12,000 a year now put into that. Huge benefit for those parents, grandparents that want to give some money. And then these are the different type of Social Security programs. I want to make sure you have that. And then here's more ideas on transition, career portfolios. This is talking sort of about the training, post-secondary training. And this looks at even like your state plans, what's going on. And the bottom, number 6, is students actually in jobs with the employer talking, the student talking. I love it. It's so cool because it really talks about how important that is for everybody. And then here's some more resources that I think these are some all free resources. So definitely take advantage of these. So that's me. And I definitely want you to ask me questions.
Yes, thank you so much, as always. I just feel like you're such a breath of fresh air when it comes to this type of stuff, because you have the tenacity, but you also give us realistic action plans. And that's something that's really valuable, at least to me. I always feel more capable.